Hey folks, how's it going? This is Iron Seagull here, back with a different game today. Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2, because the Warehouse demo came out recently, so I thought I would do a video on that because I go way back with this series. I didn't start with the original like a lot of people did, but I started with Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 4, and I did eventually play Pro Skater 3 at my friend's house, but I did experience many of the levels of the first two games because they were brought back in Tony Hawk's Underground and later games. So this is still going to be a very nostalgic sort of trip for me, and wow, already with this one level, I've put about 5 hours into it, so I can already imagine myself putting hundreds of hours into this game, just like I did with the older games back in the GameCube days. I know this is not the first attempt at bringing back the classic Tony Hawk's Pro Skater gameplay, because I did play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater HD, and unfortunately that one missed the mark. The gameplay didn't quite feel the same, and it was still missing some of the levels from Pro Skater 1 and 2, and well, I didn't play Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 5, but apparently it was much worse than even HD was, so I am glad to say that this feels a lot more refined. It feels a lot more like the original games. It actually felt quite natural getting back into it, where you have the one button to jump, you have one button to grind, you have one button for the grab tricks, and you have another button for the flip tricks, and then you have all the different directions that you can press at the same time to do different sorts of tricks. And it also helps me personally that they did bring back some tricks that were not originally featured in Pro Skater 1 and 2. Like, they have the spine transfers from Tony Hawk 4 that I started with, they have the hip transfers from Tony Hawk's Underground, as well as the wall plants that made their debut with the same game. They also have the trick extensions for the manuals, the lip tricks, and the grinds, so that you can easily build up your multiplier that way while you're doing any one of those things. And of course, I can't believe I almost forgot to mention the reverts that were introduced with Pro Skater 3, which are vital for continuing your trick combos out of half pipes. However, you don't have to play this way if you don't want to, because in the game mods section in the options menu, not only are there different cheats that we've seen in previous games, but there's also a moveset option where you have the default with all the bells and whistles that I mentioned, but there's also Classic Pro Skater 1 and Classic Pro Skater 2 styles where you're restricted to what you had in those two games. So if you want to go back to not having luxuries like manuals and reverts, go with the Pro Skater 1 style. But to give a rundown of how this demo works, when you open it up, you are greeted with this pretty cool title screen that shows a montage. It gives you a little sneak peek at some of the other levels being included in the game. And it plays Superman by Goldfinger, and the first time I saw this, I couldn't help but have a big goofy grin on my face. And then once you go in, you can see that, hey, there's Create a Park. So I guess that's going to be coming. I wasn't aware of that. There's also Skate Tours. I'm guessing that's the career mode, and there's multiplayer. You are also able to customize your skater. Most of it, unfortunately, is locked off in this demo, but you can still get a little sneak peek at some of the outfits and the decks you can unlock in Tony Hawk's case. And I believe Create a Skater is supposed to return. And we also have the stats, though you can't unlock any of those in the demo. We'll have to wait for the full game as well. But we are able to change the tricks, because you do have some special trick slots, 2 of which are completely empty from the start. And you can also change the tricks that you do for the normal grabs, flips, and lip tricks. Tony Hawk is the only playable skater in this demo, but there's a whole slew of skaters from the original 2 games. I think all of them are returning, but I don't know if they're going to bring back any of the special characters from the first 2 games, because Spider-Man was in Pro Skater 2. That would be pretty amazing if they got him back, but I'm not fully expecting that, though maybe since Vicarious Visions, who also worked on the Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, is working on this game, maybe we can get Crash as a secret character. I think that would be really awesome, especially since Crash 4 is also coming out this fall. One other thing that is happening though is that there are 8 new pro skaters being added who weren't in the original 2 games, so either way, it looks like there are going to be many different skaters to play as, all with their own styles and special tricks, so that should be pretty fun. You also have a bunch of other options, including what parts of the HUD are visible, and the controls. Yeah, it is compatible with the Xbox 360 controller. That's what I use to play this. And of course, there's the music. So only 4 of the tracks are included in this demo, but there are way more because there are almost all the songs from both Pro Skater 1 and 2. I believe only 3 are missing now, since they did confirm that they managed to get a couple of more than they originally planned. And there's going to be over 30 brand new songs, so there's going to be a lot to choose from. I'm not sure what that always use English voices option is for. Maybe it's because one of the new pro skaters are Japanese, so maybe she recorded her lines in both Japanese and English, and then you could toggle between the two, but I guess we'll have to wait for the final game to see that in action as well. But single session is the main gameplay here, so you can go into there and you are put on a 2-minute time limit, and you can just roam around the one level that's available here, which is Warehouse from the original Pro Skater. And yeah, just get around, get as much of a high score as you want, and it will show you at the end how well you did. But don't worry about collecting the skate letters or the combo letters or any of that stuff. That, I'm sure, is just being reserved for the full game too. You are able to find all the gaps in Warehouse though, including one of the more difficult ones that I just pulled off there, highlighted in blue. And you can view the whole gaps list for each level, so that's pretty cool. And usually you do have to find all the gaps so that you can unlock certain things like characters. So I'm assuming it'll be like that in this game too. Oh, maybe we could unlock the original Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 character model for Tony Hawk. That would be pretty funny. We were actually able to do that in Tony Hawk's Underground too, so it would be a nice nod to see that again so many years later. Overall, I've had a lot of fun just messing around in the Warehouse level, even though my first experience with it was the remake of it in Tony Hawk's Underground 2. It's still such a huge upgrade compared to that game. It is interesting how there's a lot more light flowing in this one, because I remember Warehouse being a lot darker, and there are a couple of interesting little details. Like on the left side of the level, you can actually see a cat roaming around outside that just pops out every few seconds. So I hope that future, well, not future, but the other levels in the game will also have little details like that that weren't even there before, but are still just fun things to see and discover. And seeing how well Warehouse was handled, as well as seeing snippets on social media of some of the other levels in the game, like the Hangar and Downhill Jam, and both School 1 and 2, it makes me hope that just like with Pro Skater HD, they can at least bring back some of the levels from Pro Skater 3. But since they are bringing back every single level from the first 2 games this time, if they go for 3, then they definitely should bring back each and every one, but especially Canada and Airports. I love those 2 levels, and just thinking how good they would look in this game with this engine, just yes, please. Getting some levels from Pro Skater 4 eventually, of course, would also be really cool, but that'd be a pretty massive undertaking and reaching for the moon at this point, because those levels are much bigger than the ones from the first 2 games, and the gameplay of 4 is a lot different from the first 3 Pro Skaters. But even if they just stick to the first 2 games for this outing, I think this is going to feel like a pretty complete package with quite a bit of replay value. There's really not much for me to complain about. I'm not a huge fan of how when your skater falls over, there's this weird glitchy rewind sort of animation instead of the skater fully getting up. It takes me a little bit out of the experience of, oh, hey, I get to play as Tony Hawk himself. I guess I could still get used to it maybe, but I think I still much prefer how it used to be done, where you do see the skater fully get up, and if you do want the skater to get up faster, you can still button mash. At least the animations when they are just falling down are pretty humorous. And I do think they did play it pretty smart with what moves they brought back and which ones they didn't, except maybe they should add the spacewalk manual trick from Tony Hawk's Underground, where the skater just makes their board go side to side and you actually regain some of your speed, because you can definitely get into spots where you're doing a manual and you're doing the trick extensions, and then you just end up being in one spot the whole time, so you can't really do much. You just have to just do tricks until you hopefully don't fall over. But those are my biggest complaints, really, and those I still consider fairly minor, so when my biggest complaints are like that, then you know I like the game. The full version of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 is releasing on September 4th on PC through the Epic Games Store, PlayStation 4, and Xbox One. If you want to play this demo right now, then pre-order the game on your platform of choice, but digitally, not physically. If you pre-order a physical copy, for some reason they're not going to give you the demo. But yeah, pre-order it digitally and then you can download the demo right away. Thankfully, there is no limit as to how often or how long you can play the demo. So you can just play the demo to your heart's content until you have the full version. And just the night before this demo released, I felt like a child on Christmas Eve. So I think that feeling's going to come back tenfold the night before the whole game comes out. And yes, I just can't wait. This is going to be such a really cool nostalgic trip. And yeah, wow, 2020 has not been the best year for us, but at least this is one good thing to come out of it. Feel free to let me know in the comment section below what you think of Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1+2 so far. And be sure to subscribe if you want to keep up with my latest content from The Sims, Paralive, Sonic the Hedgehog, and more. So I will talk to you all later, and have a great day. Thanks for watching!